Tonight on Capitol Hill, a sharply partisan moment unfolded during the Pam Bondi confirmation hearing, one that says as much about the current state of the Justice Department as it does about the political divide shaping Washington right now.
Very partisan. Senator Brett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you so much for being here today, and really glad to see your family. I had the opportunity to help them find where to come back in.
Thank you, Senator.
They are all so excited, and rightfully so, and so proud of who you are and the work that you've done. And speaking of, I think it is absolutely, completely ridiculous that anyone on the other side of the aisle would ever say that you were anything but immensely qualified for this job. From your time as a career prosecutor to then a two-time Attorney General of the third largest state with regards to all of the people that operated underneath you, with what you were able to achieve, it is truly remarkable. The United States of America could only be so fortunate if you were confirmed and to have someone of your caliber, of your intellect, and of your experience running a department that unfortunately has been run into the ground. So I think that that is full-on gaslighting, which, by the way, I had to get my children to explain to me what that was. Not only that, but to act like you would be the one that would weaponize the Department of Justice. What I have heard you say time and time and time again is that you will follow the law. And this is coming from a side of the aisle that has allowed the Biden administration, by saying nothing, they've allowed them to go after parents who are at school board meetings, who want nothing more than their children to be taught and not indoctrinated. They have allowed them to go after people who are trying to practice their faith. And they have sat idly by while the weaponization of the Department of Justice has undermined the credibility and credence that Americans believe that they should have in equal justice under the law. So I know that you will, as you have said here, you will follow the law and you will return this department to where it should be in the eyes of Americans. So thank you. And I wish the gaslighting on the other side of the aisle would stop, because from my perspective, I'm over it. And I believe that's exactly what the American people have said too. And speaking of, my distinguished colleague, who I have a great deal of respect from on the other side of the aisle, just said, tried to make you answer a question about immigrants and, quote, poisoning the blood of America, when actually the previous question by our colleague from Hawaii was illegal immigration. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. And the lawlessness under the Biden-Harris administration has made every single state in this nation a border state. I am so thrilled about what you've done when it comes to opioid use and human trafficking, and I look forward to you instituting that at the Department of Justice. Your credentials speak for themselves. When opioid and fentanyl overdoses are the leading cause of death between the ages of 18 and 45 in this nation, we need someone who takes it serious. You not only take that serious, you have a track record of proving to the American people you've done it for the people of Florida, and I look forward to what that means to the families that I have met. You talked about the families you met across Florida that showed you pictures of their loved ones that they lost, their brother, their sister, their cousin, their friend, their mother. And I know that there will be more lives that are saved as a result of your service when you are confirmed. So on that, I say thank you. And when it comes to illegal immigration, which we need to put a stop to, I want to ask you a question that you and I had an opportunity to discuss a little bit. You share my desire, I know, to not only get away from the weaponization and wokeness that we are seeing in the department right now, but really prioritizing safety and security. And I want to say thank you for that commitment and your commitment to blind justice. When we are looking at illegal immigration, the Executive Office of Immigration Review within DOJ, there have been a number of things that we have talked about with that. And I know, as you are aware, some people call it EOIR, some people call it EOR, but it houses our nation's immigration courts. Over the course of the Biden administration, the immigration court backlog has grown from 1.4 million at the end of 2021 to 3.5 million at the end of 2024. Over that same period, the Biden administration pursued policies both at DOJ and DHS to foster a culture within EOR of failure to adjudicate cases. As an example, between FY25 and FY24, immigration judges failed to adjudicate over 340,000 asylum claims. That is compared to just under 13,000 non-adjudicated asylum claims in the previous 6 fiscal years combined. Between cases dismissed, terminations, administrative closures, and failures to adjudicate, EOR during the Biden administration has allowed around 1 million illegal aliens to remain in the United States on an indefinite basis. Now, I've heard Laken Riley brought up multiple times today. Having talked to her parents, no parent should have to go through the heartbreak and tragedy that they have. And we are working diligently to rectify that and ensure that we are keeping Americans safe and secure. But a House Judiciary Committee report on this issue appropriately called it, quote, quiet amnesty, what we're talking here with EOR. Will you commit to me that if confirmed, you will make it a priority to reform the way that EOR operates and put in place measures to ensure that immigration judges actually adjudicate these claims and cases?
Yes, Senator, thank you for meeting with me in advance. And I learned so much from you about this topic. And I look forward to learning more and working with you to do everything we can to make sure that functions properly.
Thank you.
If I am confirmed, Senator.
Thank you. Well, you are going to be confirmed because America needs you. As a part of this effort, I hope that you will consider a number of things, including reinstating the performance metrics for immigration judges, similar to that were in place during the first Trump administration, and a reevaluation of the Biden administration's decisions and policies that have encouraged the use of administrative closures. And I assume I have your commitment to examine those issues thoroughly.
We'll closely examine those, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Booker.
Mr. Chairman.
What started as a routine round of remarks quickly turned into a full-throated defense of Bondi's record and a broader indictment of how the Department of Justice has been run in recent years. Before we go deeper, if you want clear, no-nonsense breakdowns of major hearings like this and what they actually mean for everyday Americans, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you do not miss our next report. Speaking in unmistakably supportive terms, the senator framed Pam Bondi not just as qualified, but as uniquely prepared for the role, pointing to her years as a career prosecutor and her tenure as a 2-time Attorney General of Florida, the 3rd largest state in the country. The argument was not simply about resume lines, it was about management, oversight, and scale. Running a statewide justice apparatus with thousands of employees, prosecutors, investigators, and law enforcement partners is not theoretical experience. It is executive leadership under pressure. The senator's message was clear. Criticism of Bondi's qualifications, in their view, is not just wrong, but deliberately misleading. And again, if this kind of context helps you cut through the noise, take a second to subscribe so you stay informed as these confirmations continue. From there, the commentary widened into a much larger claim that accusations Bondi would weaponize the Department of Justice amount to political gaslighting. The senator argued that Bondi has repeatedly stated she would follow the law and contrasted that promise with what they described as real-world examples of politicization under the current administration. Parents at school board meetings, people practicing their faith, and ordinary citizens, they said, were treated as threats rather than constituents. Whether viewers agree or disagree, this is an important moment to understand because it reflects a growing belief among many Americans that justice is no longer blind, but selective. If you want ongoing coverage that explains not just what lawmakers say, but why they say it, subscribe now so you stay ahead of the headlines. The issue of immigration also took center stage, particularly the distinction between legal immigration and illegal immigration. The senator pushed back on language used earlier in the hearing, emphasizing that the United States is a nation of immigrants, but also a nation of laws. This framing matters because it highlights a core policy debate that often gets flattened into slogans. The claim here was that lax enforcement has effectively turned every state into a border state, stretching local resources, increasing strain on law enforcement, and fueling broader public safety concerns. This is not just a border argument, it is a federalism argument about how national policy impacts local communities far from the southern border. If you want more breakdowns like this that connect policy to real-life consequences, make sure you subscribe. The senator then shifted to opioids and human trafficking, an area where Bondi's record in Florida was presented as a concrete example of results, not rhetoric. With fentanyl overdoses now the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45, this issue cuts across party lines and geography. The testimony highlighted families who lost siblings, parents, and friends, and argued that enforcement, prosecution, and prevention are not abstract policy goals, they are literally life and death decisions. The implication was that Bondi's approach could save lives on a national scale if implemented at the Department of Justice. If stories like these matter to you and you want continued coverage that explains not just what lawmakers say, but why they say it, subscribe now so you stay ahead of the headlines. The issue of immigration also took center stage, particularly the distinction between legal immigration and illegal immigration. The senator pushed back on language used earlier in the hearing, emphasizing that the United States is a nation of immigrants, but also a nation of laws. This framing matters because it highlights a core policy debate that often gets flattened into slogans. The claim here was that lax enforcement has effectively turned every state into a border state, stretching local resources, increasing strain on law enforcement, and fueling broader public safety concerns. This is not just a border argument, it is a federalism argument about how national policy impacts local communities far from the southern border. If you want more breakdowns like this that connect policy to real-life consequences, make sure you subscribe. The senator then shifted to opioids and human trafficking, an area where Bondi's record in Florida was presented as a concrete example of results, not rhetoric. With fentanyl overdoses now the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45, this issue cuts across party lines and geography. The testimony highlighted families who lost siblings, parents, and friends, and argued that enforcement, prosecution, and prevention are not abstract policy goals, they are literally life and death decisions. The implication was that Bondi's approach could save lives on a national scale if implemented at the Department of Justice. If stories like these matter to you and you want continued coverage that keeps the human impact front and center, subscribe to the channel. Finally, the discussion returned to the structure of immigration enforcement itself, specifically the Executive Office for Immigration Review within the Department of Justice. While technical, this matters more than it sounds. EOIR oversees immigration courts, judges, and case backlogs that now stretch into the millions. How this office is run affects due process, border enforcement, and the speed at which cases are resolved. The senators signaled an interest in reforming what they see as dysfunction, moving away from what they called wokeness and back towards safety, security, and blind justice. Whether that vision becomes reality will depend on confirmation votes and future policy decisions, but this exchange shows exactly where the battle lines are being drawn. If you want ongoing in-depth coverage that helps you understand these stakes without the spin, subscribe now and stay with us as this story develops.